side of Atlanta. And today we put together a presentation basically that quickly goes over how solar energy works, but what I'll also talk about is some of the highlights of what the new offerings are today. Solar has come a long way in the last few years, last 3 years, and we as Hannah Solar have grown from a company, myself working out of a spare bedroom as an all-volunteer army, to over 85 employees now, and we're the biggest in Georgia, we're one of the biggest in North Carolina, probably be the biggest in Mississippi this year as well, and South Carolina. And we're out really just trying to create this energy revolution where we're transitioning folks from being reliant upon the grid and power costs that keep on going up, to more options, solar being one of the key options in the South because we don't have a very good wind resource. And then also, this is a Sonnen battery bank, and this is our latest and greatest offering that we are just starting to offer, and Jackie Town, who's sitting down right now, has sold the first two in the eastern U.S. And so they'll be going into Tybee Island, Georgia over the next couple of weeks. They ship next week. With our team here, we've got John Daly from Hannah Home Energy, Jeff Boss, he's the guy who gets all the phone calls to make sure it actually goes in properly, and any problems you may have. Chad Ferguson is lead project manager for us, so he's the guy who has the team on your roof. And then Grant Talon in the back, and he's down in Savannah, and he and his wife Jackie ran our Solarize Tybee program down in Tybee Island, but then extended into the whole Chatham County area, but really was focused on downtown Savannah just because the folks who adopted solar. They're part of our team, and they have done a great job really getting folks to understand what the solar offering will do for you at the end of the day, because there are a tremendous number of misconceptions out there. Quickly on who we are as Hannah Solar. We're located, our headquarters is on Collier Road. We have an office up in Asheville, North Carolina, and an office down in Savannah, Georgia. That could be taken by me. I don't know. We had a guy in St. Croix last week looking at a couple of projects, but we have out of our 85 employees, about 44 are either electricians or journeyman electricians, and that's where a lot of the magic happens. When we first started, solar projects would come and go, and we would build a solar project, and then we'd be sitting around looking for the next project. And so in 2009, we bought a backup generator company. John runs generator sales for our company, and he is an incredible generator guru. And so we sell about 150, sell and install about 150 Generac generators a year. They're natural gas or propane generators that'll back up either a house or a small business. And we bought that company because it literally kept our lights on at the office. We had to fill in the voids between a solar project and the next solar project, because solar was not really happening in the Southeast yet. So that filled in the voids. Now both of them are going pretty fast, but the electric vehicles started hitting the streets of Georgia, and I thought, well, it's kind of like installing a generator or installing a solar system. You need electricians, and it's not something anyone else is really focused on. So we started doing electric vehicle charging infrastructure installation, and we are, I think, by far the largest installer of this electric vehicle charging equipment in the Southeast. And Georgia is the epicenter east of the Mississippi for electric vehicles. And when I look at the app for ChargePoint and how many chargers there are out there, we're putting in north of $100,000 a week of charging infrastructure in Georgia. And it blows my mind that this is happening at this pace. But it's just, it's mind-boggling to see how many of these dual-port ChargePoint chargers are going in. Commercial businesses, Kimberly Clark called us up. They put in 2 chargers. We said, while we've got the boarding equipment out here, let us run conduit for 6 more chargers. And it was on a Monday, we commissioned them. On Friday, we got a call for 6 more chargers. And I mean, if you build it, they will come, and that's what's happened in the state of Georgia. It's amazing what's happened. In our building, we produce more electricity on this building than we consume. We have 6 chargers out in front of our building, so we are literally driving on sunshine every day when we're in our Nissan Leaf driving around, or our Kia Soul EVs. We have free charging there, so if you ever need a free charge, come by Hand Solar. As long as you have a charge point card to start the thing, you can get a free charge and you can be driving on sunshine. We're one of the few spots in the state where you're actually driving on sunshine. So the next thing we did was, I swore up and down a year ago, we were not in the residential solar business. No way, no how. It is a pain in the butt. Well, then along comes the Solarize program, and we let me grab the book here. There's an RFP. Solarize is kind of what we're trying to accomplish here in Serenbe. But if you haven't looked at this book, take a look at it. These are all the projects we did for down in Serenbe, or a handful of the ones we did on Serenbe and Savannah. But Tybee, what did I say? Serenbe, sorry. Exactly. But this Solarize program,
it's always been ahead of himself.
Yeah. This Solarize program is something the Department of Energy came up with, because when a community like Serenbe says we want to do solar and we want to make it more accessible to everybody, do we really want to go through all the headaches of creating a program from scratch? So the DOE came up with this Solarize concept. They have consultants out of DC that will help you get it started. And with the Solarize program, then they've taken a lot of the legwork and taken you all the way to third base. So all you have to do is get the community engagement so that you can just knock this thing out. And it's not nearly as hard as it was if you were to begin it from ground zero. So if you want to take a look at the book and pass it around, the Solarize program got us into residential solar, and from there we learned a lot of lessons. One is doing commercial solar at the scale we normally do it, where we just did a project in North Carolina for Bernhard Furniture, and put 6,670 panels on their roof. That's a lot of panels. The commercial guys that do that work are used to putting 200 panels a day on a roof. We threw them down, we gave them to the talents, Jackie down in Tybee, and said, oh, you can do a residential system because it's easy, it's 10 panels. It doesn't work like that. It's just like commercial construction and residential construction. So it was cats and dogs. So we learned, and Jackie and Grant, Jeff, a few others, we all suffered through the process of creating a residential division. So we created a residential division called Hannah Home Energy. John leads the sales on that. Jackie coordinates the sales on it. Jeff makes sure the project gets installed, and then Chad actually does the installation. Within Hannah Home Energy, we've got electric vehicle charging, backup generators, solar, and now we have storage. That's kind of how the company operates. We've got a Hannah Home Energy division, and then there's a commercial division. Commercial division is still over 95% of our revenue. Residential's got a hill to climb, but this team is doing an incredible job building a really, really nice portfolio of projects, and that Solarize program was really just the starting point. We're licensed electrical contractors not only in Georgia, but in Mississippi. We're going to be building a 20-some-odd acre solar farm on the Gulfport Naval Base. So we got licensed as electrical contractors in Mississippi. We're finishing up 5 projects there right now for the electric membership cooperatives like a Greystone. North Carolina, we did 15 community solar projects for the electric membership cooperatives there this year. We did 4 for them last year. South Carolina has a really robust solar program. It's similar to the Greystone program, where they actually give you a cash rebate once you finish the install. They give you a very nice rebate. South Carolina, Alabama, That's from Alabama. They're a little behind the times. Alabama, they're going to catch up someday. We've just got Tennessee actually as well. So Tennessee has Tennessee Valley Authority. They can't figure out if they're friendly to solar or don't like solar because they have too much generation. So there's a little bit of a tug of war there in Tennessee. Just briefly on how solar works, I have a subscription. I have to admit to Popular Mechanics. I brought the latest issue with me today, and it was "Are You Prepared?" was the cover story this month, and it was about kind of, catastrophe happens. What are you going to do? Do you have a battery system that can power your house or not? Do you have a generator? Do you have storage? Do you have water? Do you have tuna fish? So the basic point with solar though is how does it work? And it's the sunlight is being converted into a DC current flow. And really, if we look at this Bosch panel or the LG panel over there, what's happening with this electron excitement? The electrons are all getting out to the silver, and it's just a little stream gets to a slightly bigger stream, to a bigger stream, to a bigger stream. And now these panels, that panel was probably about a 180 watt panel when it was put up here, and it was probably latest and greatest technology just a few years ago. That panel, same exact size, essentially same technology, is 300 watts. And so if you put 5 of these together, you have a 1 kW system, and over there you'd have a 1.5 kW system. A typical home needs about somewhere between 5 and 10 kW system to offset the whole load. And so what we do is we add the little tributaries into bigger streams at the panel level. We don't make the panels, we just make the panels better. So the panels, we just aggregate the panels and put them through inverters. Ray, you want to pull the microinverter there? And inverters are what turn the electricity from DC electricity into AC electricity. So just a few years ago, everybody used a central inverter. So all of these panels would come into one inverter and be converted into AC electricity. And if you had some panels on this side of your house and some on this slope, they would be producing at different levels, and so it didn't optimize those panels. So Enphase was really the pioneer in microinverters. Each panel now has its own inverter for residential. And it's almost exclusive that we use a microinverter of some type. So each panel will be optimized for electricity production. And you can put them on this slope. They can have a little shade here, no shade here, and you're going to get the maximum output from those panels based on the sunlight that they receive. And it gives us a lot more flexibility on how we design a system. The solar system, so just a few years ago, everybody used a central inverter. So all these panels would come into one inverter and be converted into AC electricity. And if you had some panels on this side of your house and some on this slope, they would be producing at different levels, and so it didn't optimize those panels. So Enphase was really the pioneer in microinverters. Each panel now has its own inverter for residential. And it's almost exclusive that we use a microinverter of some type. So each panel will be optimized for electricity production. And you can put them on this slope. They can have a little shade here, no shade here, and you're going to get the maximum output from those panels based on the sunlight that they receive. And it gives us a lot more flexibility on how we design a system. The solar system produces electricity depending on what the utility electrical drawing to them, and it invariably will be rejected 1 or 2 times before we then get back to it, and we will then design a system around their program. We either feed the power, all of it back to the utility, if that's their program, or it goes into your house, into your panel, where they're feeding into it, and you're pulling out for your refrigerator or your HVAC. So that's what Greystone wants you to do, is feed into your distribution panel. So it's going to feed in, and then the electrons don't know where they're going, so they're going to go wherever they're needed. The current's going to flow where it's needed. So the electricity is then consumed on site. If it's the middle of the day, nobody's home, you've got a tight house, your HVAC system, you actually program your programmable thermostat, you're not using a lot of power, it'll start going back out to the grid, and the meter will spin backwards. So Greystone is going to see this electricity coming back to their grid, and then at night when you get home and you start turning things on, and the sun may or may not still be up, the meter will start spinning forward like it normally does today. And then at the end of the month, or end of the quarter, or end of the year, that meter gets trued up, and that's called true net meter. With solar in the U.S. in general, worldwide in general, it's been exploding. There's a tax credit. So if you put a $15,000 or $20,000 solar system on your roof, you get a 30% tax credit. So that your next tax filing, you can not pay or get back 30% of what you put into the system. And you can carry that forward for up to 10 years. Put in a $20,000 system, you have a $6,000 tax credit, that comes right back to you. If it's a commercial installation, you also get depreciation. You get 50% bonus depreciation in year one. So then instead of 30% coming back to you essentially in year one, it's more than half that comes back to you in year one. This tax credit was set to expire at the end of this year. And so, end 16. So, getting solar panels, getting racking, getting inverters was getting very, very difficult because this was expected to happen because the tax credit was expiring. The biggest panel manufacturer in the world is Trina. You cannot buy a panel from Trina until the end of the third quarter. And I mean, they're putting out probably 100,000 panels a week. They're sold out until the end of the third quarter. All these panel manufacturers had their production consumed by huge utility scale projects, small developers like us, all locking up panel supply. Well, when that tax credit got extended for 5 years, which just happened in December in the omnibus budget bill, it opened up the market a little bit. So there's more. That 16 number is probably not going to happen, and panel supply freed up significantly. The cost actually came down a little bit as well. You couldn't get a deal with a panel supplier trying to buy panels for this year. Now you can. So then if we go to, where is Georgia? You don't see Alabama on this list at all. And really, you don't see a lot in the Southeast except North Carolina, number 2 in the country. And they had a great program. So the 30% federal tax credit that you got here, you also got 35% from the state of North Carolina. And so for a commercial client that also got depreciation, they essentially got back 98 cents on the dollar from tax advantage. Solar was going in fast and furious in North Carolina. That tax credit expired at the end of 2015. So North Carolina will slow down. Can you go backwards? That will slow down a little bit in North Carolina, but not a lot because the cost of electricity over the last few years has gone up so rapidly and is going to continue to go up. Georgia, we're arguably, we're called the fastest growing solar market in the United States. That will probably shift to South Carolina. We started at a low base, so growing exponentially was pretty easy. South Carolina is going to have the same kind of look next year and feel, but Georgia will put in probably 5 or 6 times as much solar as South Carolina. We're putting in residential solar like here, commercial solar, and then utility scale solar. And I wish, I have a picture on my phone. I was down at one of the solar farms going in. How big is all of Serenbe? How many acres? Anybody know? 1,000 acres. So down in Taylor County, Georgia, Butler, Georgia, y'all know where that is, right? So you go down to Macon and you head west, about 35 minutes. It's not that far away. There's a 1,000-acre solar farm. Also, I mean, I've got a picture on my phone. I saw it the other day for the first time in person. 1,000 acres of solar. It's 2 miles long and as far back as the eye can see. Across the street, there's another 1,000 acres, another 1,350-acre solar farm, and a 242-acre solar farm, all going in. And the reason is, utilities finally figured out solar's cheaper than. The other thing that drove solar, the tax credit was a big part of it, but the cost kept on coming down. This panel here, let's say it's a 200-watt panel. If we wanted to buy that panel 5 years ago, that would have cost $2 a watt to buy that panel, so that would have been a $400 panel. This panel is a 300-watt panel over here, and we're paying in the 80 to 70 cent range for that panel. Actually, this is higher because it's a high-density panel, but so that panel, what's that? 106 to 108. So that's about a $330 panel, and it's, you know, 1.5 times the density of this one, which would be $400 or $500 just a few years ago. So the cost of the panels came down. The other thing that happened, though, was the racking systems that go on your roof. Instead of, you know, Chad on your roof with a drill trying to find a stud and putting a bunch of holes up there that you're not going to really appreciate next time it rains, these racking systems all improved. And the speed of installation got so much better. And then when you look at this microinverter technology, now we don't have to align all those panels perfectly on only one roof that's going to have the same solar density or radiation coming into it. So everything got cheaper. The installation got cheaper because it was faster. The equipment got cheaper because there's a lot more volume out there. And the panels were a big part of it, and they came down dramatically as well. So the cost kept on going down, down, down. And this is just, you know, this is a 5-quarter view of this right here. So this isn't, you know, it still is trending down a little bit. If you look at, you know, residential, this little uptick here, we would probably have seen that again towards the end of this year because finding a solar installer at the end of 2016 was going to be impossible. Now we're probably not going to see that so much. The cost has come down, but the tax credit goes away in 5 more years. And folks that were going to not get it if it expired at the end of this year, you know, this decrease, the present value of all the savings you're going to get from electricity, there's no reason to wait to put in solar any longer. The efficiency of the panels is great. Microinverters are very, you know, very affordable, and the cost is almost levelized relative to the cost of the net present value of your savings. By the time you've paid this thing off in 6, 7, 10 years, now your savings delta becomes greater as we go forward, and your system pays for itself. So I probably have spoken to most of this, you know, the value of the solar system. We generally sell against the, you know, cost recovery model, which is not the best way to sell solar. In 6 or 7 years or 10 years with residential, you've recovered your investment in solar. The systems are warranted. These panels are warranted for 25 or 30 years, depending on which panels is chosen. They're going to work far longer than that. They have no moving parts. The inverters may need to be replaced at the end of a certain life cycle. N-phase is a 25-year warranty on it. So for 25 years, your inverter and your panel are warranted to produce. N-phase, we've been working with N-phase from their first generation system to today, and we'll be working for them for a long time. They monitor all their inverters that are operational out there, and we would get a FedEx package of an inverter for system X, and before we or the homeowner knew that inverter was out, we would already have a replacement inverter, and we'd schedule a technician. They'd go out there, replace the 1 or 2 inverters that had burned out, or it might have been a lightning strike or something, and away we go. And so that inverter now has a 25-year warranty starting that day again. And so it's the system is going to be working for 25 plus years. Hedging against the rising utility costs, the you know, the moment I said, you know, electricity costs will never come down, natural gas doesn't nosedive even steeper than the cost of solar panels, and so electricity actually has edged down a little bit. Your bill continues to go up though because of, there's a rider on there for environmental cost compliance recovery fee, the cost of the financing of the Vogtle 3 and 4 plants, and state and local taxes. If you're generating on site, you're not buying electricity, so you're not taxed on that. You're not paying your portion of the environmental cost compliance recovery fee because you're not buying electrons, and you're not paying for the nuclear construction on a pro rata basis, again, because you're not buying those electrons from the utility. So you save on all three things. Electricity's come down a little bit, the rate of electricity, but those fees have gone up. So our power bills still continue to go up. Once the cost of natural gas starts coming back up again, we will see that reflected in the cost of our power bills because everything has shifted away from coal to natural gas and solar. We are also looking at, and we talked about this, I talked about this with a few folks in the room, the value of the home in certain markets, California in particular, they've got enough solar out there in residential homes that the value of the home, they're seeing between 17 and 22% increase in the value of that home that has solar. And the value of that is much like a commercial property, you've got this total cost of ownership. If you have a very low utility bill because you put in geothermal, you put in energy efficient appliances, you've got programmable thermostats, you've got LED lighting, the cost of operating that home for whoever buys it next is so much lower. If you put in solar, the same thing happens. So the value increases on the home. The panels are very low maintenance. We recommend, you probably are going to call us out once every 2 years maybe, if you don't have a guy who's cleaning your gutters, who's up there on a ladder. You know, we just want to make sure there are no bird's nests or wasp nests underneath the backs of the panels. If they're working perfectly, all we want to do is make sure that gets cleaned out from underneath the backs of the panels, because a dry bird's nest or a wasp nest that gets that heat could be a potential problem fire-wise. So we'd rather get that cleaned out every 2 years or so. We don't generally recommend a preventative maintenance program for the panels because it's cheaper to just do an hourly thing. Hire someone like us hourly every couple of years to make sure they get cleaned out. Much like your gutters or something, you know, you're going to have some work done up on your house. You've got a little handyman crew coming by. Just make sure they're cleaned out underneath the backs of the panels. So it's very low maintenance. Commercial systems, it's a little bit different. We certainly recommend panel cleaning on those because you're talking about 500 panels, 1,000 panels, and the production degradation from a dirty panel is going to add up to a far greater number. But on a residential program, the rain's going to do most of the work for you, and a little light brush every couple of, once a year or once every 2 years is going to do the trick to keep them clean.
Would you put a cheaper roof system under the panel because you can't see it anyway, like a TVO or something like that?
That's a great question. I would recommend it. If you've got an opportunity to do that and it makes sense, certainly that would be a way to go. On a flat roof, we look at the conversation with either the homeowner or the building owner. We look at the fact that these panels are going to actually shade the roof from hail and UV damage, and they're not going to get as hot. And so you don't have the thermal expansion and contraction you have on a normal roof. So those tiles or shingles underneath arguably should last a lot longer. I don't know if anyone's done a study on that yet to prove that out. One of the studies that has happened multiple times is on a flat roof with a TPO membrane roof, the shade on those panels that they cause on the roof is going to reduce the HVAC load on that whole building. So it's one of those things, and if you've ever gotten on a hot roof without a glove on and you put your hand on the asphalt shingle or you put it under the panel, you're going to feel a difference.
Instead of the roof absorbing the rain, you use panels.
Correct, yeah, exactly.
They don't make panels that are waterproof, that can take place in the roof.
Those panels, yes. Those shingles are now available. The first generation were really, they absorbed a tremendous amount of heat, and so those were discontinued. There are some new ones out now that we've looked at that are, we haven't installed any yet, right? We've talked about two different. Yeah.
Yeah, challenges, so what you're on the solar shingle, essentially what it is, there's actually a South Fulton here down near Macon, I believe, that has on it, but you have each shingle, so you're saving the cost and not shingling the roof by putting the solar shingle on, so you kind of offset there, but you have to penetrate the panel, because it's a width off of each shingle, and the code has to, then you're not having to run conduit in your attic, it has to be in conduit. So you now add the penetrated roofs, now you've added additional cost for material, so you're really not offsetting a lot. It's still, I think, personally, I think you're a generation or two away from shingle that will be cost-effective.
Cost-effective and sensible, yeah. So I talked about this just briefly, but the Solarize program we did down in Tybee, the way that works is you get kind of a group buy, price-wise, by aggregating multiple homeowners who want to adopt solar at the same time. It's easier on our team to be able to coordinate installs. Once we got our act together, we were installing a residential system in a day to a day and a half. And so the labor cost savings are very quick. And if we can mobilize, our electrical team would come in and they'd be there for half a day getting everything ready and getting the conduit up to the roof so that when the panels were put up there, the connection could be made very easily. So they'd come in ahead of time and then they could leapfrog one another and really get a lot of momentum going by doing this group buy. The Solarize programs are designed with a limited time so that folks just don't delay. And then you get everybody in, and then that way you can keep this lower price by having that group buys. I mean, it's much like a subdivision going in. You know, it's easier for the builder to do multiple houses in that one subdivision than to come back and do a one-off, you know, every year or so. So we had, this is one of the other very kind of interesting stats. There were 600 folks that asked us to come and evaluate their home for solar. Of those, about 300 were determined to be good candidates because of either condition of the roof, orientation of the roof, or you know, their ability to really do solar. Out of that, 62 homeowners, or 10%, basically signed contracts to have solar installed in their house. This is, you know, it's 100 to 10 to 1. You know, normally with a residential customer, and here we got from 100 to 10. So it worked. The system worked here, where we were able to spend less on marketing efforts, less on pursuit costs for a customer, and pass that along to the community to save on the install cost of the solar here. And you can see some of these houses, you know, had great, easy roofs to work with, and others were far more challenging. With the microinverters, if you had a chimney that was casting shade on a part of the panel for part of the day, it really doesn't affect the production of the rest of the panels, whereas in years past that system would have all been tied together, and that one panel would have pulled down the production of that whole string. And the solar battery device, most of you have probably heard, if you're aware of storage for the home, have heard of the Tesla Powerwall. This is solar battery. They've been around for a number of years. Over in Germany, they have over 6,500 of these installed, and they just came to the U.S. Their official hard launch was January. We signed up with them as a solar and battery center for for North Georgia back in September, and we selected their technology because of their experience out there with 6,500 units operating in homes. The Tesla Powerwall is sexier looking than that, but you can't get one. They're just not able to ship them, and it's probably going to be, they're saying 6 months right now to get one, but it's probably going to be more like a year. There are other similar devices like this. There's one called Juice Box, which I think is a great name, very similar to this, and they use LG batteries. That panel's an LG panel over there. LG is very serious about the storage market and the battery technology that they've created, and they're one of the leaders. The batteries in this one are Sony batteries, but it doesn't have to be a Sony battery. It could be an LG battery, it could be a Samsung battery, it could be a Panasonic battery. Bosch's as well. So
How long are those expected to last?
so these are, the batteries will be warranted for 10,000 cycles, which is about a 10-year length.